Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversa's webinar for today. Glad to have you with us. This is Jim from Conversa, and a little bit of housekeeping for you so you're aware of what we will be doing. The presentation should be around 30 minutes or so. Following that, we'll be open for questions. There's an area where you can put your questions in. I'll be watching those. We'll hold all of those until the end. And at that time, then we'll give Brian a chance to address the questions. Also, there's a chat area if you have any concerns as we're going. If there's issues that we can help with, put those in there and I'll do what I can. We will make this presentation available for listening and viewing afterwards. It takes a day or so to get that up and going. We'll email that to you so that you can have access to it. But with that, let me introduce our guest for today, Eric Jackson from Big Leap. We're going to be talking a little bit about online reputation management. And so with that, I'll turn the mic over to Eric.
Thank you very much, Jim. Pleasure to be here. Reputation management is something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I've been working on it in a variety of aspects and jobs for over a decade now. I know we have a varied audience online today, so I'm going to try and span the very basics of online reputation management, as well as maybe some of the tips for advanced reputation management as well. So hopefully we get to target everybody. I have a few of my own housekeeping items. And there are a couple acronyms that I'll use throughout the webinar. SERP, search engine ranking pages, and online reputation management, ORM. Basically, I don't want to assume that everybody joining us already knows about these things. I do want everybody to kind of stick around because towards the end, we will be doing that Q&A. And so if there are questions related to some of this material, I'll stay online as long as I need to make sure you get those questions answered. A little bit about what online reputation management is. It's a question that often our clients ask. They often don't know that they need it. But ORM basically is the process of proactively monitoring and controlling your company or personal brand online. So when someone Googles your brand, what is it that they see? And what is it that you want them to see? And that is where reputation management will serve you best. The other question we often get in the agency world is, doesn't everyone do reputation management nowadays? Can't anyone do it? And our CEO, Brian Phelps, was recently conversing with another agency CEO, and reputation management entered the conversation. And the other agency asked Brian if we do it. Do reputation management, and when Brian replied yes, the response was, yeah, but do you really do it? As in, do you really get results? And so if you experience issues with your online brand and are looking for help, the first thing that you kind of need to understand about reputation management is that it's going to take some patience. There isn't a silver bullet or a magic wand that you can wave. It's going to take a bit of time, and how much time depends on your specific scenario. And if you're engaging with an agency or an agency yourself, you understand that it's going to take a bit of a financial investment as well. All that aside, though, I want in this presentation today to at least share a few insights that I've had over the years so that you can kind of DIY your ORM. So reputation management matters. How you appear to folks online can impact your career, your business, and sometimes even your personal life. 77% of job recruiters are required to look up potential employees online during the hiring process. And 45% of people have found something in an online search that made them decide not to do business with someone. So the main question that I ask you today is, what does your online brand do for you? If you're a company, does it drive sales? Does it help you recruit employees? Does it help you personally in your career prospects and opportunities? And if the answer to this question isn't completely obvious to you already, then answering it will define for you why ORM is important to you or your business. Case in point, everybody loves a good case study. One of our clients gave me permission to speak about this, and I should add that getting permission for a reputation management case study is extremely difficult. Most clients we deal with are very wary to let anyone know that they've had to engage in reputation management, and I think that's for obvious reasons. ASEA is in the direct selling industry. Their web presence is their lifeblood. It affects their sales. It affects their recruiting, and so far in their company, it's even affected some personal lives and personal reputations. But most reputation management issues stem from simple misunderstandings. A customer didn't get what they wanted, and so they want it to play out on the internet a bit and complain about it. There are a million scenarios, and they are often caused by something fairly simple. And ASEA is no different. When they launched their company, the search results for their brand name were filled with a variety of references to ASEA. A lot of them weren't even related to them. There were some companies in Europe that had a similar acronym, and so their brand wasn't fully defined online. And so they came to us. I mean, it was very clear that Google couldn't or didn't at that time distinguish their brand from other similar brands and phrases online. And so as they continued to grow, it only exacerbated the problem. People were going to search them, and they were basically getting confused. So they came to us in hopes to clear up that confusion online and kind of create a clearer picture of what their brand was. We started a little over a year ago, and when we started a focus campaign, the first page of the SERPs had 6 negative properties ranking and 4 positive. Many of those negative properties were in the top 5 positions. And for those of you very familiar with Google and how people, kind of that user behavior, people aren't even scrolling down sometimes to the bottom of the first page to find the results. So those negative properties in the top 5 positions, people were met with unfavorable results. During the last year, we've been able to make their brand presence much clearer in the search results. Instead of confusion, people are met with web results that help them in their journey to kind of understand our specific client. And this was unique. Oftentimes clients will come to you with something very, very negative. In this case, ASEA really just wanted to kind of clear up the conversation. And so far, we've been able to do that. So getting into some of the details that will assist you in your reputation management journey. It's important to understand the various types of online reputation management, because the term reputation management is kind of thrown around in a variety of circles. The first being review management, the second being kind of reputation or privacy monitoring, and then the third being controlling and influencing the search results. Review management is kind of the art of getting more customer reviews, managing customer feedback, interacting with customers on various online channels, and that continues to gain traction in the marketplace. The best way to do review management that I've found is often through a software platform that helps keep everything kind of organized and in one place. A couple of platforms that we use and like are Review Trackers and Podium. So those are brands that are very active in the space and have a very solid platform that can help you in this arena. So reputation monitoring, this aspect of our ORM allows you to kind of stay in front of things that appear online and react quickly to them. And this can be done with simple tools like Google Alerts. You can set up Google Alerts with various keywords or brand names, or you can go with a more robust online tool like Mention.net or Talkwalkers. The bulk of what we do here at Big Leap involves influencing the search results to kind of create a positive brand image for our clients. And these campaigns are promotion and suppression campaigns that push up the good things about your brand and reduce the visibility of the negative items. In some cases, these campaigns require attempts to get negative items taken down or removed. especially when they're erroneous or legally defamatory. And it's on this type of reputation management that I want to spend kind of the rest of our time today. For any successful ORM campaign, you need to lay the groundwork. It's got to be proper groundwork. And this checklist is one that we use with frequency here at Big Leap and with very much success. And I'm going to tackle each point from a company brand perspective, but each of these can easily be applied to a personal brand as well. So your first step is to kind of get the lay of the land in the search results. And you can do this in a variety of ways. The first step that I usually take is just a bit of keyword research. Some common keywords are sometimes the obvious ones. Your brand name plus reviews, your brand name plus scam, but maybe your customers are even telling you what these keywords are. A quick way to find out what people are finding when they search for you is to go to Google and get a quick snapshot of the terms that are being searched by typing in your brand name, looking at the drop down of Google's suggested keywords, and basically identifying in that drop down if there's anything that might be disconcerting to you or your brand. After your keyword research, the steps you want to take are basically asking a variety of questions that will get you to assess kind of the magnitude of what you're facing. Some of those questions are, which of your web properties are ranking in the top 20 results for that keyword? What authoritative neutral properties are ranking in the top 20 results that could maybe be influenced to meet your goals? And examples of this are maybe media sites or related Wikipedia pages. Another question to ask is, which of your web properties are in striking distance of the first page? Basically at the top of that second page of the results. An important question to ask is, are any of the negative properties websites like Yelp or Ripoff Report? Because this will give you a sense of the challenge that you face. You know, how authoritative are those particular negative properties? Another question to ask in this kind of phase of the checklist is, are there multiple pages from your main site on the first page of the results? You know, is it just your home page, or is there kind of a deeper page on your website that can be leveraged as well? And then another one that we like to ask clients, specifically in this stage, is do any of their customers have websites in the top 20 results that can be leveraged? Because oftentimes your customers can be your biggest advocates or biggest detractors. And if they're advocates and they have websites of their own, perhaps they can become an advocate and help you adjust that online reputation that you're facing. So once you've got the SERP landscape taken care of, your next step is to take an accounting of all the web properties that are within your control. So the questions to ask here are, does your company or brand have more than one active website? If yes, what are they? And kind of list those out. Does your company or brand own a list of unpublished domains that can be leveraged? If yes, what are they? If no, what could they be? Are there web properties associated with your brand that can be kind of easily, that you can easily gain control over to leverage? An example of this could be like review site profiles that haven't been claimed yet. Oftentimes on review platforms, users can create kind of a profile about your brand, and it's an opportunity for you to go out and kind of claim those and control that conversation a little bit more. The next step in our checklist and for your brand is to do a traditional SEO audit. The majority of our clients that we encounter want their main website ranking first for their brand name. And a traditional SEO audit of your site can reveal items that are often easily fixed or leveraged for better results. So you need to start there. During this audit, you got to be sure to look at other opportunities as well on your website that can be leveraged. Are there blog posts that are thematically in line with the keywords that are targeted in your reputation management campaign? Do you have FAQ pages that can rank or answer questions from your customers and consumers? And these questions can often be the ones that plague the campaign, like, is X brand a scam? Don't be afraid to answer those questions in an FAQ, especially if you're facing some tough reputation management challenges. Those are your opportunities to engage with those folks that are trying to find out more about you. And if you're answering transparently, then you give everybody an opportunity to say, oh, okay, I understand the conversation now. Other things that you can look at are company bios. Can you leverage those at all? Current press releases, old press releases that could maybe be tweaked or leveraged with a certain keyword focus that you're trying to relate to. Traditional social platforms rank well within the search results. And when I say traditional, I'm talking about your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, Instagram, Google My Business profiles. Those are the things that most people are already engaging with. But the questions to ask during this stage of your auditing are the social channels optimized completely? And by optimized, I mean, is your company info built out? Does it include your website or a page that you're trying to direct people to, and so on? How often are you posting on each channel? Frequency of posts or regular activity can be a positive signal to search engines. What type of posts in the company posting is your company or brand posting to the channels? Is it all branded stuff? Is it all promotional stuff? A good mix of promotional and interest-based industry content. You want to find a good balance. And so in your audit, you want to find out what tweaks can be made. You definitely want to look at engagement. What engagement is like on each of these channels, and what can be done to improve the engagement. If engagement is good, what posts can be leveraged for the campaign? And then you have your paid social media, like boosting posts. Has the company engaged in that at all, or are you even willing to? This also speaks to engagement and can increase engagement where it may be lacking. Lastly, what social media channels are missing from the mix that have the possibility to rank? The next stage of your audit and checklist is to basically audit available content. This is your opportunity to identify and compile a list of useful content that can be repurposed to other channels. And if you aren't familiar with the process of repurposing content, this can be as simple as taking a blog post and making it into a SlideShare presentation, or taking a SlideShare presentation and making it into a YouTube video. And so you're utilizing content that's already been created and putting it onto other mediums that can not only rank for your reputation management campaign, but engage with different customers and different users on those channels. And at this stage of the checklist, there's no content that is too trivial. So you need to look at content pieces like blog posts, business or sales collateral that you don't mind publishing. I mentioned company bios before. Press releases, product launches, white papers, videos. There's a variety of things that you can look at that can be tweaked and repurposed into other channels and other mediums for your benefit. And the last stage of this checklist is really just creating a roadmap. With all this auditing and these lists that you kind of build, you need to talk about what's cohesive, what's going to be focused on immediately, and what can be used later. Questions like, do we want to create additional social channels are helpful in this stage? Or how easily can we create an FAQ page for our site? Identify what resources you have and don't have, and tackle the items that can be done quickly, but skillfully, and without too much of a drain on your available resources. So 3 things that I want to touch on to kind of DIY. These are actionable items. I'm hopeful that you guys can take action on these so that you can do reputation management yourself. At Big Leaf, we kind of say that the star stuff matters. Maybe it's just me that says that, but it doesn't make it any less true. Reviews matter, but not all review platforms are created equal. So if negative reviews are a problem for your business, then there are a few platforms that you want to use and a few that you want to steer clear of, if possible. We all know the stats that are associated with reviews. Don't ignore your review presence online. It's an opportunity for you to engage in the conversation and make sure that people are viewing you the way you want to be viewed and not erroneously. So some of the review platforms that you can use. I find that things like Glassdoor, Indeed, Google My Business, and even Hiya are platforms that you can easily engage with, drive people to give positive reviews. These are also platforms that rank very well, especially if you're just starting out or trying to dig yourself out of a hole or a low star rating. These sites are a little bit more easily controlled. Now, it also kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier. Because these platforms are a bit tough to control, you probably want to engage with a software platform like Podium to manage the process. Now, the sites that you want to avoid typically are your Yelps and the BBBs. And the only reason I say that, they're great review platforms and great audiences to tap into, but they have very stringent review policies. Yelp, for example, discourages you to ask your customers for reviews. So if you're running a review campaign and trying to engage with your customers and drive them to review platforms, their policy is, hey, don't do that. They also have a policy to never remove a review for any reason. And so for if ever the conversation were to turn negatively, Yelp is a difficult platform and profile to kind of control the conversation on. On the flip side, Google has, well, sticking with Yelp, Google has a tendency to rank a Yelp profile very highly in the search results. And for those of you that may be encountering reputation management issues and have a Yelp profile, you can often see that. So it can be a double-edged sword. It can rank really well if you've got positive stars working for you. But if you are having a tough time controlling the conversation, my advice is to stay clear of that platform. I mentioned before that traditional social channels will be important in your campaign, but there are other profiles that can be created and leveraged as well. Examples that you probably have considered or may have considered: SlideShare, Medium, YouTube. These are all great platforms that rank very well in the search engines. But there are also other examples that I want to provide you that maybe you haven't considered. About.me, Crunchbase, yes, even Urban Dictionary. We've worked with clients to kind of define their business on Urban Dictionary, and it's been a great resource for them to control that conversation. And then Giphy. Some brands and businesses are very visually engaged and some aren't. But this is a profile that typically ranks very well. And you can easily set it up. And from all of that content I was referring to earlier, you can easily repurpose that content into a GIF. And yes, I'm in that school of thought that calls it a GIF and not a GIF. So my last kind of advice to you is that the most successful campaigns that we have run also have a very common theme that is very much controlled by the client, and that's change. You've got to take the time to truly analyze what is causing your reputation issues and change that behavior where possible. If it's a confusing policy that has customers in an uproar, take a look at how it can be adjusted for better success. If it's a vocal minority that's causing trouble for you, how can you engage them differently than they're being engaged by your brand now? And making adjustments will stop the new stuff from coming in to the search results and allow you to kind of tackle the issues that are already present or have already occurred. Now, that's a bigger conversation, especially within larger companies. So if change isn't possible, you don't think for a minute that it eliminates you from being successful with online reputation management, because it absolutely doesn't. But do be prepared to spin your wheels a bit while trying to deal with the new stuff as it occurs, as well as the old stuff. So that's my advice to you. Happy to take questions at this point. Jim, do we have any out there?
At this point, we're not having any questions that have been posted. Not to say that there aren't some questions out there. So everyone, if you have some questions, whether it's on this specifics that Eric addressed today or something in the management of your profile, your public awareness of you that you would hope to get answered today that you didn't hear, this is a good time to ask them as well. Okay, having a few here. Let me see if I can get these pulled up. How would you alter this strategy for reputation management for an individual rather than a company?
Well, that checklist, as I mentioned, is, and this is a great question, is very pertinent to an individual as well. Do you own your name as a domain name? Are you willing to throw up kind of a little website about you or a blog? That's one of the first steps that you can audit. Are there social profiles about you that you can engage better with? Are there new ones that you can create? And so it's really just taking that checklist that I presented and shifting the focus a little bit to you as an individual.
Another question, could you elaborate on Twitter ORM?
Can I elaborate on Twitter ORM? Certainly. I want to understand the question a little bit more. Can they elaborate through their question though?
I can.
Yeah, it's probably difficult to engage back. That's fine. I alluded to a lot of the platforms that we kind of use to kind of engage on social and get reviews. Podium's a great one that you can engage with on social channels, specifically on Twitter. When you're trying to control a conversation, my advice is to not engage with those trolls as we know them, but put out a lot of the content that we've talked about that you may be repurposing, and be as transparent as possible. Honestly, people really, they want answers that aren't felt like they're being spun. And so if you can put out content and engage with people on Twitter with transparency, it's going to be a lot easier hill to climb.
I'm trying to, I think this is, the interface makes this a little difficult to go tie questions together, but I think this person was interested more in, not more, but specifically in chronic kinds of complaints. So.
Well, one thing that's been successful for clients of ours is when you have chronic complainers and people that just won't let things go, are there opportunities to engage them differently? You have to identify if you can either take them offline or how you can satisfy that. Twitter's a tough profile because they have their terms of service as well. If you're looking specifically at someone that will not stop trolling you, then you could probably review the Twitter terms of service to see if they're in violation and see if you can get some of those items reviewed or removed for that matter.
Another question, what again are some of the good third-party programs to use to update profiles in one place?
Two that I use, and if we're talking about social channels here specifically, and to kind of engage people in review-based conversation, Review Trackers is a fun one. I know that WhiteSpark has kind of an ORM component to their software platform, and then Podium is a terrific one that we engage with fairly often for clients.
The next question is actually one for me, and yes, this will be available for replay. It takes a little while to get it downloaded, uploaded, and prepped, so it'll be sometime tomorrow before you get the email, but if you've signed up, you will be notified when it's ready for sure. And with that, I think I'm to the bottom of the questions again. Let me see if anything has shown up in the chat box. Nothing there. And I'm not seeing more questions here. I know increasingly this issue of being able to have a great reputation online it's more and more important. More and more people and companies are using it, so it's going to be more of an issue going forward that all of us need to be watching pretty closely. Eric, if you had to pick one thing that somebody should do, just in general, I mean, I realize that we all have different circumstances that we're coming from, but probably the single most advantageous thing to consider, no matter who you are or what you're doing, what would be at the top of the list most of the time?
Well, in the years that I've been doing this, the most successful campaigns have been when the party in question is willing to adjust, and that's why I mentioned change. If there isn't some desire or semblance of change in the behavior, then you're going to find consistent issues. Because we live in an age, as we all know, where anybody can go online and say whatever they want, even if you feel it's erroneous. And so for those of you that might be facing reputation management issues, it's important to analyze what change can happen within yourself, within the company. And even if they're small changes, sometimes you can engage your audience, your customers, a little bit differently and stop the deluge. And that gives you an opportunity, and the search engine is an opportunity, to start ranking more relevant conversations about your brand. Because Google especially is always revamping their algorithm, and they want to show people what's relevant. If people are engaging on negative web properties about your brand, those properties are going to continue to rank because they're getting engagement. And Google's algorithm thinks that that's the most relevant thing to show about your brand. And so the change allows you to also change the conversation. And so as you change the conversation, Google sees that those negative things aren't as relevant anymore. And they start to drop off, and they allow you to control the conversation in other areas.
If someone is looking for information, they've watched the webinar, but they want to dig in and do a little more research, what are some good resources that you would suggest that folks could use to look at to increase their knowledge and awareness of what reputation management is all about and things that they might consider that would apply to them to help in their management?
Well, I'm sure that my company wouldn't be happy to. I'm going to refer them to other resources, but I think it's important that people know where those resources are. Reputation.com is a very established company. They have a lot of content, and they educate well. Brand Yourself. It's a company back east, and they focus mainly on personal reputation management, and they kind of have a DIY platform, which is kind of fun. But they educate very well. I'm happy to engage with anybody, whether it's on social, offline, or otherwise, because I get pretty fired up when reputations are at stake, because I like to make sure that the right conversations are taking place online. So those would be my suggestions.
You know, I'm aware that there are various companies' websites that gather information and do some comparisons, mostly between brand reputations, not so much personal, although they do pull owners or CEOs of companies into the mix, and they do the comparisons. How much value is Google attaching to those kinds of companies and websites that are providing that information?
It's a great question. Right now, it's pretty substantial authority and credence that they're giving those review type sites. Those sites are often part of a large conglomerate that has large budgets that go towards SEO and paid media, and their whole business is to appear for, you know, tons of keywords, tons of brand names, so they can kind of control the conversation with the purpose of getting you to pay. Oftentimes those platforms are kind of a pay-to-play model. And so if you want to rank on their rankings, then oftentimes you're going to pay for it.
Gotcha. So you kind of, yeah, it's a tough call sometimes. Is it going to be worth it? Or I do have another question. What kind of timeline can a client expect to go from zero or old online presents to first page Google results if they use all of these tips?
Well, I mentioned early on that you got to be patient in the process. Every scenario is uniquely different, depending on what's ranking negatively and positively, what assets are in play. So it's difficult to establish a timeline. Usually we'll do that with our clients, early on in the kind of discovery process. We'll go through this checklist and as we put our plan together, say, this is what the timeline looks like. Because there isn't a magic wand or a silver bullet in reputation management, you shouldn't expect for things to clear up in a month, even 3 months. Typically, a timeline we see for a large to medium-sized brand, we'll start seeing the conversation change a little bit within 6 months, and at a year, you start to see substantial progress. But usually, the job isn't done even after a year. Now, we'll see wins throughout that 12-month period that again are changing the conversation. But it would be difficult for anyone to go into reputation management and expect their reputation to be clean on Google's first page within a few months' time.
So a lot of work, lots of patience to get us there.
Definitely.
If a client is reluctant to change, how can you help convince them this is the best process to save their reputation?
Well, and I think I mentioned that because we have clients like this as well. The lack of desire to change doesn't preclude you from getting results in reputation management. It just extends the timeline. And so it's difficult to convey that to clients sometimes. And oftentimes they need to go through the actual process and see the results before they can change their mind. It might be several months down the line where you've seen some quick wins, but there are new things coming into the search results and new things cropping up as a result of their lack of change. And so we found that's probably the most obvious indicator and driver to get them to admit to change. Again, there's no magic bullet in that conversation, but when we take on clients here at Big Leap, we try to be as transparent as possible to say, this appears to be your problem online. How are you going to address it on your end so that we can address the online results? And so you have to do your best, especially up front, to convey that to the client.
Let me ask a question I think may help elaborate on the answer a little bit more to that question is um, if we do ignore it because we're reluctant to change, uh, how bad can it get, and how can we measure that? How can we measure this bad reputation that's being built and the effect that it's having on the other aspects of our business online? Are there any
That's great.
measurements that we can do for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The measurements aren't always as black and white as you might desire, but the things that when I alluded to the question of what does your online brand do for you, what is it currently driving? Is it driving your sales? Is it driving your recruitment of employees? Is it just giving your customers a sense of who you are? By answering that question, you'll be able to measure that a lot better. Because if your sales are going down, subsequently, you need to take a look at your online reputation management. The biggest thing that we've seen with clients, and when they come to us, it's because their customers and their loyal advocates are telling them, "Hey, this is a problem. What are you doing about it?" And that's usually what triggers folks to seek us out. Does that answer your question, Jim?
I think it does. I think it helps because what I'm hearing you say is we need to listen, whether it's to our customers when they're talking to us or to whatever else may be going on that we can pick up hints from. We need to be tuned in to the tenor of the conversation that's happening so we understand the perception. Because the reality is more and more that's where the first look is, or maybe the second one when they hear about us is to look at some of what are the reviews, what are other people saying? I mean, isn't that what we all do? Where does this rank in other people's minds and in their assessments? So it's important to keep that in consideration when we're having the conversation with the client or whomever it may be, to try to convince them that, hey, let's look at the reputation out there and let's see if we can manage this better. And to overcome the reluctance if they can get maybe not hard data, but at least some strong indicators that there's some negative going on and it's pulling us down.
Agreed. The hard data is sometimes difficult. Sometimes it's staring you right in the face. But the key, like you said, Jim, is to listen.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Here's another question. How do you keep tabs on reviews once you get your business information profile added to a ton of places? Yeah.
Well, that goes back to those software platforms I talked about. The things like Podium and review trackers. Not only will they help you drive and engage new customers and new reviews, but within their software platform, they have an opportunity for you to track reviews, oftentimes respond to reviews directly, kind of behind the scenes or on the review platform. And so, Whitespark has a pretty good platform that's relatively inexpensive. And so if you're looking at personal reputation management, don't want to spend a lot of money, that might be a place to go to. Review trackers and Podium, they're set up for kind of medium to larger size businesses, and so the price kind of escalates depending on how many locations you might have or how many platforms you're trying to engage with. But my advice is once you get all signed up on all of these platforms, you've got to have a central location to kind of manage that. And if you want to use one of the free ones like Hootsuite or Buffer, you can do that too. But if you're specifically talking about reviews, I would recommend the ones I alluded to earlier.
No, that's great. That's a great answer. I'll wait just a little bit to see if we get any more questions. This is, I think, been very helpful to get some ideas, not only of how important it is, but really what can I do for managing my reputation a bit better. it's just one more thing we have to put in the mix that we have to be watching and managing constantly. But even though it's hard to measure, there is a direct tie between the success of our company, however we measure that success, and that reputation that is floating around in the internet. Here's another question. What was the lower cost option again for keeping tabs on reviews?
White Spark, the color white and Spark. They're a local SEO company out of Canada, and they have kind of an ORM platform that will help you engage with your customers, respond to reviews, and kind of manage them all in one place.
Well, here's another one. This is good. If Google suggested search includes the brand name with scam or another negative word, should we use those particular negative words? Let me see if there's more on this question. It doesn't have a period. Oh, here. To increase SEO for our version of the story, or do you recommend focusing on other positive attributes to change the story?
I love that question, and it's one that we often encounter, and we talk about internally here as well. There is a healthy debate on whether or not you should sometimes kind of ignore those negative keywords and hope they go away by focusing on the positive, or should you tackle them, and if tackling them actually increases its visibility. More often than not, we've seen that you can't ignore it. Those things, especially in the Google suggested search, will only become more prominent as people click on it and drive traffic to that particular search result. And so if you're not engaging somehow on those search results, you're not going to be able to change the conversation. Now, a key thing to realize, you can be focusing on your brand name, and I'll take the FAQ as an example. If you have an FAQ and you're answering maybe scam-related questions and you're okay with that, it isn't just going to rank for your brand name. It's also going to start ranking for those keywords as well. And I would recommend not ignoring those negative keywords, specifically because very rarely does it just go away by focusing on maybe solely your brand name or just that positive conversation that you're alluding to.
So address it head on and change the tenor of the conversation for that negative word to a positive conversation.
Address it head on. Yeah, be as transparent as possible, and be as transparent as you're willing to be. You don't have to. You don't necessarily have to focus all your time and energy on those negative keywords, because a lot of the conversation changing that you're doing related to your brand name will cascade into those search results as well. But don't ignore it either.
Okay. So why don't I say this, if this is okay with you, Eric, if there are more questions that come up later, you have the invitation email. You just email it to me. My return is on there, and I will get the questions to Eric, and we can get them addressed that way if there are additional questions. But it's been a great session. I think these questions and answers especially have helped highlight a few more points that were pretty important for us to have a grasp on. But thanks a lot, Eric. We really appreciate this. It's been very, well, wait a minute. One more question. Oh, it's been very helpful. Thank you. Okay, we appreciate that. So good deal. So thanks a lot, Eric. We appreciate your time today and your information. And once again, everyone, you'll be getting a link to review this if you'd like to review it. It's been a great session. Thank you very much.